Can you complete Batman Arkham City without gliding? After beating the main story, I started wondering how much of the game you could actually beat without unfurling your cape. So, I went back into the save file to answer that question once and for all. G'day chaps, 'tis I, ClownPuncher139. My idiocy and self-torture continues as I tackle Arkham City once again, this time with the intent to complete it. My goal is simple: beat every side quest I can without gliding. Can I do it, or will the super criminals reign triumphant? Spoiler alert, one of them does. This was difficult. Right off the bat, there are certain quests that we can immediately eliminate from the realm of possibility. Those are Enigma Conundrum and the AR challenges. The AR challenges require you to glide through rings Superman 64 style, and they are all over the map, so they are simply not happening. And Enigma Conundrum has quite a few trophies that require you to glide in some way, so that's not happening either. Though at the end, I will show how many trophies I was able to collect. With that in mind, let's go ahead and rank the rest of these challenges from easiest to hardest. Right off the bat, we can talk about the freeze-related missions, Hot and Cold and Heart of Ice. Both of these are incredibly easy, as you just need to travel to the industrial district and do a couple of things. In Hot and Cold, you just need to make your way to the boiler room of the steel mill to fight a few thugs and get some stolen freeze tech. And Heart of Ice just has us going through the storage facility, beating up some guys, and reporting back to Freeze. It's really easy, unlike the freeze fight itself. Next, let's talk about the Tea Party, the very first mission I was able to do. This one is also incredibly easy, as it's just a brawl that doesn't have any kind of movement. Even easier is Remote Highway in the Iceberg Lounge, as you just need to enter the Iceberg Lounge and talk to the cops to get the mine attachment. Getting slightly harder, we have Acts of Violence. This requires us to explore the city listening for the screams of political prisoners. This, in and of itself, wouldn't be hard if we could glide while we listened. Instead, we just have to run around hoping we get in range of the problem so we can intervene. Aside from that, it's a really easy mission, just somewhat time consuming. Very similar is Watcher in the Wings, where we just have to look at the rooftops for Azrael. But, of course, it's entirely random where Azrael appears, so it's random when we'll be able to talk with him. So, we have to randomly explore the city and hope we see him on top of a building. If not, we'll just have to go somewhere else, hope he's there, and maybe get a piece of the map. It has the potential to take a long time, so that's why it's one of the harder easy ones, if you will. Next up, we have Fragile Alliance, which I did most of during my initial playthrough. Had I not done it, this could have taken quite a while, as the Titan containers are all over the city. After that, it's just a beat 'em up in Bane's Lair that is really easy. Of the final easy missions, we have Identity Theft, which just requires us to look for bodies in back alleys. Of course, that does mean exploring every nook and cranny of the Bowery and Park Row without gliding around, which of course is very time consuming, but certainly possible and not exactly hard. And with that, we have reached the end of our easy missions. Unfortunate for me, entertaining for you. Potentially surprising some, our first of two hard missions in this game is Shot in the Dark. A very easy mission normally is still incredibly easy until we reach the final act. After discovering Deadshot's hideout, we learn that he's going to kill Jack Ryder next. Even worse, he's going to do it all the way across the city in 3 minutes. Time to put my movement skills to the test. Normally, you'd probably use the Grapple boost and get to Jack in less than a minute. Without that trick at our disposal, we have to run, grapple, drop, repeat until we reach Ryder. And we have to do so fast, as, again, he's on the opposite side of the city. But that's the only challenge in this mission. Even then, I'd been traversing the city like this for hours at this point, and I'd gotten so used to it that getting to that location in the time was no problem. I still had a whole minute left, and I even made a few mistakes along the way. The rest of the quest was no issue, as you just have to examine crime scenes to find Deadshot's evidence, which never requires gliding. And finally, surprising nobody as the hardest mission in the game, is Cold Call Killer. This mission is ridiculous. It calls for us, pun intended, to answer random phones throughout the city. Answering them presents us with Victor Zsasz, the serial killer from Asylum, who has taken hostages again. He calls to tell us to run across the entire city searching for a single ringing phone. This is hard. Very, very hard. After the call, you have anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes to get to the phone and answer it to save the hostage. You have 1 to 2 minutes to get across the entire city and answer a phone on the ground. Do you see where the difficulty comes in? Do you see the amount of pain that I am in performing this challenge? This requires us to be nearly perfect in our movements. No grapple goes wasted. No accidental glide where we have to turn around. No mistakes. In almost every interaction, I had almost no time left, barely making it in time. And I had to do this at least 6 times, with each requiring more and more power on my end. Zaz may have you go from the museum all the way to the steel mill in 2 minutes, or in one case, from the cranes of the industrial district to the collapsed freeway next to the church in 1:20. These missions truly show the challenge of the no glide run, as running on the rooftops only to stop and slowly drop down really makes your heart race. You never know if you'll make it, which is something a glidable run doesn't provide. These were by far the most fun missions to complete, since I actually failed a few times. I was very proud to pass these missions, as it truly showed my mastery over glideless movement. If you don't want to dedicate yourself to an entire glideless run, which you absolutely shouldn't because it is torturous, at least try Cold Call Killer without unfurling your cape, because it is one of the most fun and satisfying missions I have played in a long time. Hindsight, however, has given me the knowledge that I could have used the line launcher a lot more. So if you're doing this challenge, don't use the line launcher, because I was stupid enough to not use it. Finally, with all the possible missions out of the way, let's talk about the green elephant in the room. Enigma Conundrum, as stated, is not possible, as many trophies and challenges require you to glide, which we can't do. However, I was still able to get a massive amount of trophies and challenges completed, which I am very proud of. By the end of the game, I was left with 378 of Riddler's challenges completed. I did skip out on a couple of Catwoman missions just because I just didn't want to do them, but they are all possible, obviously. So technically, our total would be 411 challenges completed, only leaving us with 29 uncompletable. But that's also excluding the 13 physical challenges I decided not to do. So our true total is 424 challenges completed, with 16 left impossible. That is honestly amazing. With that in mind, let's take a look at those 16 impossible challenges, and some of the hardest and craziest possible ones. Firstly, let's look at one of the most infuriating impossible trophies. There is one impossible trophy in Wonder City, and it is one of the saddest things to bear witness to. This trophy is right at the entrance to the Wonder City area, right after Batman collapses and loses his health in the story. The problem is that we can line launch right underneath it, but it's blocked by a wooden barrier, and there is no way to break the barrier with what we have. The only way to break these barriers is to line launch through them, apply explosive gel, dive through or punch them, or, unfortunately, glide through them, which is the intended method for this trophy. As said, we can line launch underneath it, but we can't perform any of these actions to break the barrier. This includes explosive gel, since we can't apply it while we wire walk, for some reason or another. We also can't use the backclaw on the wire, which is just as infuriating when we can very clearly see the trophy from the back wall. This is one of the saddest ones to see impossible, as collecting it would give us every single trophy in Wonder City. Next are the various pressure plate trophies throughout the city. Some of them are incredibly simple as they're just on the ground. Others, however, require us to glide into them, which we cannot get around. These plates will not let us line launch into them, even if we hit them dead on. And even if we could line launch onto them, we would be out of luck, as we would have to hit at least 2 more without touching the ground. And we can't do that because we need to touch the ground to use the line launcher. So that leaves 1 in the Bowery, 1 in Park Row, 3 in Amusement Mile, and 2 in the Industrial District that we can't do just because we can't glide. So go ahead and add 7 more to our currently impossible list. Still on the topic of pressure plates, there are 2 that require us to dive bomb onto a plate with high enough speed to open up the trophy case. 1 in Park Row and 1 in the Industrial District, both of which are completely impossible because dive bombing is not allowed in our moveset. Go ahead and add 2 more trophies to the impossible list. Similar to the pressure plates is 1 trophy in Park Row. This one where you have to dive off this gargoyle into the hatch below. Unfortunately, we don't fall fast enough to get into the space before the hatch closes, despite my best efforts. So, add one more to the list. And finally, we have the physical challenges that require us to glide. There's 5 in total, each requiring us to do something involving the unfurling of our cape, which, added together, makes 16 impossible Riddler challenges. Despite those failures, we were able to get a lot of seemingly impossible trophies. One of my personal favorites was this trophy in Park Row, where it appears you have to glide from this pressure plate to reach the hatch with the trophy. Surprisingly though, if you crouch rock your way down, you don't have to. And we can get this trophy unlike its gargoyle cousin not too far away. Similarly is this one in Amusement Mile, where it seems like you have to glide to this pressure plate to continue. Once again, we surprisingly don't. So long as we have the line launcher tightrope walk, we can make it above the pressure plate and land on it without gliding. Dang, this feels good. Also in Amusement Mile, we have the trophy and riddle underneath the GCPD building, which would normally require us to glide, but since I'm an idiot, I knew firsthand that this was possible with the line launcher. As that just so happened to be the way I did it the first time I beat this game. You just have to line yourself up properly and let it rip. And of course, hope you get lucky. Another of my favorites was the Wonder Tower riddle, where we had to line up the question mark. Normally you'd be expected to glide around the tower and scan the answer, but we have idiocy on our side, and can just jump off the edge of the pole and quickly scan to complete the riddle. With all that in mind, be sure to stay tuned for the finale of the Arkham City No Glide run, as I tackle Harley Quinn's revenge in the next episode. Until then, like, subscribe, and share this video around. I'll see you later, chaps.